God always hears us. A miracle can happen. Listen to this prayer. God does not ignore silence. He works inside it. What feels like delay is often preparation you cannot yet see. What feels like absence is often presence moving in ways your mind cannot interpret. There are moments when a person prays and nothing seems to change on the outside, yet something begins to shift within the invisible structure of their life. Not everything God does is announced with signs. Some answers arrive quietly, long before they become visible. If you are here right now, listening to these words, there is a reason your attention was pulled to this moment. It is not random. It is not ordinary. It is a point of alignment between what you are carrying inside and what heaven is already working on. Stay here with this message, because what you are about to hear is not just an encouragement. It is a redirection of how you understand your waiting season. There is something happening beneath what you can see, and it is closer than you think. The invisible moment when God begins to act. There is a moment that no human eye can detect, when everything begins to change without any external sign. It is not loud. It is not dramatic. It happens in silence, in the hidden space between your prayer and your expectation. This is the moment where heaven starts responding before reality catches up. Most people believe answers begin when they see results, but spiritually, the beginning is always unseen. It starts in the places where doubt tries to grow, but something stronger is already working. A movement that does not depend on timing as we understand it. When you pray, you are not sending words into emptiness. You are activating a process that continues even when you stop thinking about it. What looks delayed is often already in motion, just not yet revealed in form. And here is what changes everything. The beginning of your miracle is not when you notice it. It is when it is already decided beyond your perception. Something is unfolding right now, even if nothing around you confirms it yet. And the next truth you are about to hear will challenge the way you understand silence itself. There is a kind of silence that feels heavy, almost like abandonment. It makes a person question their prayers, question their worth, and even question if they are being heard at all. But not every silence means absence. Some silences are carefully placed protection. There are answers you asked for that did not arrive because what you could not see was not ready to be faced yet. What feels like delay is sometimes divine shielding from outcomes your heart would not have been ready to survive. God does not only respond to what you asked for, He also guards you from what you are not yet prepared to carry. In moments like this, the human mind tries to fill the silence with fear, but spiritually, silence can be a form of guidance. It removes noise so something deeper can be formed within you. It is in this space that your inner strength is being rebuilt, even if everything around you feels still. What you call unanswered prayer may actually be a redirection you do not yet recognize, because not everything that feels right for the moment is right for your destiny. And there is something even deeper hidden inside this silence, a layer of meaning that only reveals itself when you stop resisting what you cannot yet understand. There are moments when words fail completely, not because you do not want to pray, but because what you feel is too deep for language. It becomes silence, heaviness, a thought that cannot be structured into sentences. Yet even there, nothing is lost in the presence of God. There is a form of prayer that does not require articulation. It is born in the chest, shaped by emotion, carried by tears that do not always fall. It is the kind of prayer that never reaches your lips, but still reaches heaven with absolute clarity. What you are unable to express is not ignored. It is understood in its purest form, because in the spiritual dimension, intention speaks louder than structure, pain speaks louder than eloquence, and sincerity carries more weight than perfect words. There are things you tried to say but could not finish, situations you could not even explain to yourself. Yet all of it is already present in a space beyond human interpretation, where nothing about your inner world is misunderstood. And what makes this even more powerful is that sometimes the deepest prayers are the ones you never realized you were praying. What comes next will take you into a truth that changes how you see your own suffering and its hidden meaning. There are emotions that feel like burdens, but in the unseen world, they are not just pain. They are pressure points that shape something new within you. What feels like breaking is often the beginning of transformation that you cannot yet recognize. Every emotional weight you carry has a strange dual nature. It can either harden your heart or open it. And in moments of deep struggle, something begins to shift beneath your awareness, where pain is no longer just suffering, but a passage into something deeper. There are seasons where nothing seems to move forward, yet internally, everything is being rearranged. The mind calls it confusion, but spiritually, it is restructuring. What you are feeling is not random. It is shaping your capacity to receive what you once could not hold. Many people try to escape emotional weight, but what they do not realize is that some of it is forming strength in places that were once fragile. Not all pressure is destruction. Some pressure is preparation. And in this hidden process, something sacred begins to form quietly inside you, long before any external change takes place. What you are about to hear next reveals why stillness is never wasted in the eyes of God. There is a stage in the spiritual journey where emotions disappear from faith. Not because faith is gone, but because it is being refined beyond feeling. You no longer feel inspired. You no longer feel certain. You simply remain. This is where many people believe they are losing connection, when in reality, they are entering a deeper form of trust. A trust that is no longer dependent on emotional confirmation. A trust that stands even when nothing inside reacts. In this place, prayer becomes quieter, not because it has weakened, but because it has matured. It no longer seeks immediate reassurance. It simply continues, even in emotional silence. There is something powerful about staying when everything inside wants to withdraw. Because in that stillness, faith stops being a feeling and becomes a decision. A quiet decision that does not depend on evidence to remain alive. And this is where transformation begins to take a more subtle form, not through emotional highs, but through persistence in absence of them. What you are about to hear next will reveal how unseen alignment begins to happen when nothing seems to be happening at all. There are moments when distance is not real, but it feels real enough to shake your certainty. You look at your situation and think something has changed between you and God, when in truth, nothing has moved except perception. What creates the feeling of distance is not separation, but silence without interpretation. The human heart struggles when it cannot translate what it is experiencing, and in that struggle, it begins to assume absence where there is only mystery. But spiritual reality does not depend on emotional clarity. There are times when presence is strongest, precisely when it feels least obvious, not because God is far, but because something within you is being prepared to recognize Him in a deeper way than before. There is a shift that happens when you stop measuring closeness by what you feel and start recognizing it by what is being formed within you. Growth often feels like distance before it becomes understanding, and in this subtle tension, something important is happening. A realignment between what you expect from God and how He is actually moving in your life. What comes next will reveal a language that does not depend on words, but still speaks directly to your spirit. There is a communication that does not pass through words, logic, or even understanding. It exists in a deeper place, where emotion becomes expression and silence becomes speech. This is where the heart speaks most honestly. A broken heart does not need perfect sentences. It does not need structure. It simply exists in truth. And in that state, something powerful happens. What cannot be explained becomes fully understood. There are feelings that never reach human language, yet they are fully received in a dimension where nothing is misinterpreted. Not even confusion is wasted there. Even uncertainty has meaning in that space. This is why sometimes, when you feel like you are not praying correctly, or not expressing yourself properly, nothing is actually missing. Because what matters most is not how you speak, but what is already present inside you. And in that quiet exchange between your inner world and the divine, something is always being heard, even when you believe nothing is being said. What follows next will take you into the hidden process of transformation that is happening even while your life appears unchanged. Digite 1 para escrever o próximo tópico, ou digite as alterações que deseja 8. The invisible process of life being rearranged around you. There are changes that do not announce themselves. They do not arrive with clarity or confirmation. They begin quietly, beneath the surface of what you can perceive, where decisions, paths, and outcomes are already being reshaped. While everything may appear still, something is shifting in the structure of your life. Connections are being realigned. Directions are being corrected. What once seemed fixed is already being gently redirected toward something you cannot yet see. This process is not chaotic. It is precise, even when it feels uncertain, because what is being arranged is not just your circumstances, but your readiness to walk into what is coming next. Many people interpret stillness as stagnation, but in reality, stillness is often the most active phase of divine work. It is the space where foundations are rebuilt in silence before anything new is revealed. And what makes this even more profound is that you are not being left out of this process. You are part of it, even when you feel passive within it. What you will hear next will reveal a peace that does not depend on change, but exists even before change arrives. There is a kind of peace that does not come after resolution. It comes before it. It is not born from circumstances changing, but from something deeper beginning to settle inside you, while nothing outside has moved yet. This peace does not depend on understanding. In fact, it often appears when understanding is completely absent. It is the strange calm that arrives in the middle of uncertainty. Not because the situation is solved, but because something within you is being held steady. Most people search for peace in answers, but spiritual peace begins in surrender. In the moment you stop demanding immediate clarity, something shifts, not outside first, but inside. This is not denial of reality. It is a different kind of awareness, one that allows you to exist without being controlled by what you cannot yet change. And in this state, even waiting begins to feel different. It is no longer a space of emptiness, but a space of preparation that carries quiet meaning. What comes next will show how even your pain is being transformed into something that carries purpose beyond what you can currently see. Digite uma para escrever o próximo tópico, ou digite as alterações que deseja 10. When your pain becomes the place where God meets you, there are experiences so deep that they strip away every illusion of control. In those moments, pain is no longer just something you endure. It becomes the very place where awareness begins to shift. It is often in the lowest points that something unexpected happens. Not relief immediately, not answers, but presence. A quiet awareness that you are not alone in what you are facing, even when nothing around you has changed. Pain has a way of breaking the distance between what you believe and what you actually feel. It removes everything unnecessary and leaves only what is real. And in that raw space, something sacred begins to emerge. Many people try to escape suffering, but there are moments when suffering becomes the environment where deeper understanding is formed. Not because pain is desired, but because within it, perception becomes clearer. And in that clarity, something shifts. What once felt like abandonment begins to reveal a different kind of closeness, one that is not dependent on comfort. What follows next will show you the moment where resistance begins to end, and something quieter begins to take its place. There comes a point in the human experience where exhaustion is no longer just physical or emotional. It becomes spiritual. It is the moment when fighting no longer produces strength, only emptiness, and something within begins to loosen its grip. This is not defeat. It is transition. A quiet turning point where resistance slowly stops being the response and surrender begins to emerge naturally. Not as weakness, but as awareness that control was never truly yours to begin with. In this space, something unexpected happens. The pressure to fix everything fades. The need to understand everything dissolves. And what remains is a simple willingness to be held by something greater than your current understanding. Surrender does not remove the situation. It changes your relationship with it. It allows you to exist without constantly carrying the weight of what you cannot solve in this moment. And in that shift, something deeper begins to move, not around you, but within you. A realignment of trust that does not depend on outcomes. What comes next will reveal the subtle signs that something has already begun to change, even if nothing appears different yet. There are changes that do not announce themselves through events. They appear first as subtle internal shifts that are easy to overlook if you are only looking for external proof. Yet spiritually, these small signs are often the beginning of something far greater. You may notice a quiet difference in how you react to what once overwhelmed you. The same situation no longer feels identical inside you, not because it has disappeared, but because something within you is no longer responding in the same way. This is one of the most overlooked signs of transformation. When the external world remains the same, but your internal world begins to shift, even slightly, it means something has already started to move. What is important here is not speed, but direction. Change in the unseen realm often begins long before it becomes visible in reality. And by the time it becomes obvious, it has already been forming for much longer than you realized. And in this quiet process, there is a deeper reassurance. You are not waiting in emptiness. You are inside a movement that is still unfolding. What you will hear next will reveal how uncertainty itself can become a hidden strength in your spiritual journey. Uncertainty is often seen as something to escape, something uncomfortable that needs to be resolved quickly. But in the spiritual journey, uncertainty is not just a gap between answers. It is a space where something stronger is quietly being formed within you. When you do not know what will happen next, something deeper is being asked of you. Not control, but trust. Not certainty, but endurance. And in that space, a different kind of strength begins to appear, one that is not dependent on outcomes. This strength does not feel loud or dramatic. It is quiet. It shows itself in the way you keep moving forward even without clarity. It reveals itself in the way you remain present even without guarantees. What once made you panic may begin to lose its grip over you, not because the situation has changed, but because your inner foundation is becoming more stable than your external circumstances. And in this subtle transformation, uncertainty stops being only a source of fear and starts becoming a place where resilience is quietly built. What comes next will guide you into the moment where something within you begins to return, something that was never truly lost, only buried. There are forms of hope that do not disappear completely. They become quiet, hidden beneath disappointment, fatigue, and unanswered questions. It can feel like they are gone, but in reality, they are only waiting beneath everything you have been carrying. At some point in your journey, something begins to shift again, not suddenly, but gently. A thought appears that does not feel forced. A possibility returns that you had stopped entertaining. And in that moment, you realize something inside you is not as closed as you thought. Hope does not always return as emotion. Sometimes it returns as a willingness to believe again, even if only slightly. A small openness that feels fragile, but is powerful enough to change the direction of your inner world. This return is not random. It often comes after seasons where everything felt suspended. And in that suspension, something was being protected from collapse, even when you could not see it. And now, as this quiet restoration begins, something is being rebuilt within you that no loss was able to fully erase. What comes next will bring everything together into a final understanding that can shift how you see your entire journey. Everything you have walked through, every silence, every waiting, every moment of uncertainty, was never disconnected. Even when it felt like nothing was happening, something deeper was unfolding in a direction you could not yet perceive. The invisible is not empty, it is active. It is where transformation begins long before recognition arrives, and when the timing aligns, what once felt hidden begins to take form in ways that feel almost impossible to ignore. A miracle is not always a sudden interruption of reality. Sometimes it is the slow revelation that you were never abandoned, never forgotten, and never outside of divine movement, even in your most silent moments. What you once called delay may reveal itself as preparation. What you once called silence may reveal itself as guidance, and what you once called distance may reveal itself as presence all along. And now, as you reach this point, something within you is not the same as when this journey began. Something has shifted, something has been opened again. Stay open, because what is invisible today may already be the beginning of the miracle you thought was still far away. Close your eyes for a moment, and allow everything you have been carrying to begin to rest within you. Heavenly Father, in this moment I come before your presence with an open and sincere heart. You know every thought that was never spoken, every tear no one has seen, every night when the soul felt too tired to keep going. Lord, I ask you to touch the heart of the one who is listening to this prayer right now. Where there is anxiety, place peace. Where there is doubt, renew faith. Where there is exhaustion, pour out strength. And where there is silence, reveal your presence in a deep and undeniable way. If there is someone here waiting for a miracle, visit their life now with your mercy, not because we deserve it, but because your grace is greater than every human limitation. Teach us to trust even when we do not understand, to remain steady even when nothing seems to change, and to recognize that even in what is unseen, you are never absent. I place everything into your hands, what has already passed, what is happening now, and what is yet to come. Let your will be light on the path and rest for the soul. In the name of faith, hope, and the love that holds all things together. Amen.